What if the thing that was supposed to destroy you was actually building you? Most people never find out. They quit too early. They walk away the moment life gets painful. But one man spent 50 years proving that every loss, every failure, and every moment of public humiliation was actually fuel. And by the end of this video, you are going to have a complete blueprint for doing the same thing in your own life. Before we go any further, here is your reward for staying until the end. At the very last part of this video, I'm going to give you a simple 3-step framework that John Travolta unknowingly used every single time his life fell apart. It works whether you are dealing with a career collapse, a broken relationship, or a version of yourself you no longer recognize. So stay with me, because the end of this video might be the most valuable few minutes of your day. Now let me ask you something honest. When you hear the name John Travolta, what do you actually think? You picture the white suit, the disco moves, Grease, Pulp Fiction. You think you know this story, but you don't. Not even close. Because the version of John Travolta the world celebrates is only the surface. Underneath that surface is a story so raw, so painful, and so full of real human struggle that most people cannot handle hearing it. And that is exactly why most people stay average, while a rare few keep rising no matter what life throws at them. Here is what nobody tells you. John was not born lucky. He was not handed anything. He grew up in a small house in New Jersey as the youngest of 6 kids. His father ran a tire shop. Money was always tight, and John was the kid at school that everyone picked on. They called him Pinky because of his fair skin. They teased him for his stutter. They laughed at the way he walked and talked. Every single day felt like survival. And instead of breaking, he went home and performed for his family until the hurt stopped feeling so heavy. That habit he built as a bullied kid in New Jersey became the foundation of everything that came after. At 16, most kids are worried about homework. John packed a bag, left home, and moved to New York City alone. He slept in a YMCA room that cost $1 a night. He washed dishes. He delivered flowers. He cleaned whatever needed cleaning. During the day, he snuck into acting classes he could not afford. At night, he lay on a tiny bed and told himself to survive one more day. No safety net. No backup plan. Just a burning belief that if he kept knocking, a door would eventually open. That level of commitment at 16 is not luck. That is a decision. And decisions like that are available to every single one of us. What looks like overnight success almost never is. It is always 10 years of invisible work that nobody photographs and nobody applauds. Saturday Night Fever changed everything, and the world lost its mind. More than 200 actors tried for that role. Travolta studied a tiny moment from a Brady Bunch clip where a character walked with a certain swagger. He practiced that walk until it lived in his bones. He walked into that audition, and the director knew immediately. The movie made $350 million worldwide. The soundtrack sold 40 million copies. He became the face of an entire era. But here is what most people completely miss. At the absolute peak of his fame, he turned down $1 million endorsement deal because he refused to be locked into one version of himself. That is not normal thinking. That is the kind of thinking that separates people who have one good season from people who build a life that lasts decades. Grease came next and made things even bigger. But while the world was celebrating, John was quietly falling apart. During filming, he found out his mother had been hiding a breast cancer diagnosis from him to spare him the pain. She watched him become a legend. And then she died. He later said the grief added something deeper and more real to his performance. He was learning a lesson most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Pain does not have to stop you. It can become part of what makes you great. But then the walls started closing in. A string of failures hit hard. He turned down Top Gun and watched Tom Cruise turn it into a $357 million blockbuster. He passed on Superman and watched Christopher Reeve become an icon. By the mid-1980s, the studios were quietly moving on. The biggest star in the world, just a few years earlier, was struggling to get good roles. And here is what most people never knew. He was genuinely scared. He had no idea if he would ever come back. The industry had made its decision, and it was not in his favor. This is the part of the story where most people quit. When the evidence around you says it is over. When the industry stops calling. When the public stops caring. Most people accept that as the final verdict. They shrink. They settle. They disappear quietly. But Travolta took a small role in a comedy called Look Who's Talking that people in Hollywood openly laughed at. The movie made $297 million worldwide. He was back. Not because the industry changed its mind, but because he refused to let their opinion become his identity. He kept showing up. He kept saying yes to the work even when the work felt small. And that one decision cracked the door open again. Then Pulp Fiction arrived in 1994 and reminded the entire world exactly who John Travolta was. That comeback did not just revive his career. It completely redefined it. Critics who had written him off were now calling him one of the best actors of his generation. But life kept testing him. In 2000, he put $20 million of his own money into Battlefield Earth, believing in it completely. It became one of Hollywood's most talked about failures. A lesser person would have hidden from the world. Travolta stood behind it publicly and said years later he never regretted making it because it mattered to him personally. That kind of ownership over your choices, even the ones that blow up in your face, is rarer than talent. It is what keeps you moving when moving feels impossible. Then in 2009, the worst thing that can happen to a parent happened to John Travolta. His 16-year-old son, Jet, died. The grief was total and overwhelming. During the court case that followed, Travolta stood in a room and described performing CPR on his own son while begging him to breathe. The world watched a man break completely open. No armor, no image management, just a father in unbearable pain. And somehow he kept going. Not because the pain stopped, but because stopping was never something he had ever allowed himself to do. In 2020, Kelly Preston died of breast cancer at 57. She had hidden the diagnosis for 2 years to protect her family. Her final words to him were simple: live for joy. Those 3 words became his entire operating system. On her birthday in 2025, he posted a video singing to her, and millions of people cried watching it. Not because it was polished, but because it was completely real. And in 2025, while death hoaxes circulated online claiming he had passed away, he shut them down quietly and showed up. He danced with 50 performers at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade at 71 years old. Still moving, still creating, still refusing to disappear. So here is the real lesson. Here is the 3-step framework I promised you at the beginning. Step 1 is protect your identity. Travolta always defined himself as a performer, not a star. Stars need the crowd to survive. Performers need the craft. When the crowd left, he still had the craft. When failure hits, the most dangerous thing you can do is let that failure become who you are. You are not the job you lost. You are not the relationship that ended. You are not the mistake you made. Protect the core of who you are with everything you have. Step 2 is return to the fundamentals. Every single time Travolta came back, it was because he went back to basics. He studied. He trained. He took roles people laughed at. He did the unglamorous work that most people in his position would have considered beneath them. When life knocks you down, the instinct is to look for a shortcut back to where you were. The real move is to go deeper into the fundamentals of what you do. Mastery at the basic level always opens the next door. Step 3 is make one bold, unexpected move. Every comeback he ever had came from a choice that genuinely surprised people. Pulp Fiction surprised people. Look Who's Talking surprised people. American Crime Story surprised people. He never came back the same way twice. He always came back as a slightly different and stronger version of himself. When you are rebuilding, do not try to recreate what you had. Create what comes next. The comeback is never a return. It is always an evolution. Protect your identity. Return to the fundamentals. Make one bold, unexpected move. The question is not whether this framework works. 50 years of proof says it does. The real question Is where in your life, right now, have you accepted someone else's verdict about you? Where have you let failure become your identity instead of your education? John Travolta never let the world's opinion become his truth. And neither should you. If this video gave you something real today, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Because somewhere right now someone is about to quit on themselves. And maybe this story is exactly what they need to keep going.